Last night, we got the word. Derek Chauvin has been convicted of murdering George Floyd, guilty on all counts. Now, many people have said that the jury was intimidated by threats by the likes of Maxine Waters and the ongoing riots. These people knew that if they said not guilty, they would have their lives destroyed. Perhaps it's the case, or perhaps the jury really did reach a guilty verdict. The state used a particularly circuitous method to get Derek Chauvin on second-degree murder, felony murder rule, arguing that trying to arrest George Floyd constituted felony assault. And because it did, it was actually a murder. And I got to say, that argument, you could be convinced of it. I'm sure some of these jurors were like, look, man, should he have put the knee on the neck? And then someone said, probably not. Well, then it's assault and then it's murder. Okay, we're done. They barely deliberated. They were out. I think the fair assessment may have actually been manslaughter, not felony murder. It wasn't an assault because Chauvin was just arresting the guy, but manslaughter in that he probably should have done a better job. But I digress. It's neither here nor there. The issue is whether or not the jury was intimidated, and they may have been. Many people said, or at least assumed, that if there was a guilty verdict, there would be no riots. Those people assumed wrong. Here we have the news from Oregon Live. Police declare unlawful assembly amid downtown Portland protest after Derek Chauvin conviction. I'm just so sick of this, man. Part of me is just like, can we just go and play Minecraft and race cars and music and other whatnot? Because what's the point of talking about this over and over again and nothing gets done about it? At what point will regular people actually stand up? Perhaps they won't, because perhaps they don't care. All right. I'm going to say this, and you know, we have all of these people on the left that are celebrating the violence and destruction, saying that because they killed people and burned things down, they won. I'm not even exaggerating. They're literally claiming that because several dozen people died last year and they burned cities down, they got what they wanted. That's not justice. That's some kind of retribution for perceived moral slights. Justice is a fair trial in trying to determine whether or not someone did something wrong and should be held accountable. Justice is finding something to be, well, I suppose justice can be a bit of a nebulous term in a sense. It basically means righteousness, just causes. Justice refers to doing the right thing and rectifying wrongs as well as holding people accountable. But the people on the left don't have the same moral values that we do. Most of us. I often talk about the Judeo-Christian values and the moral frameworks that we've built our society upon. Blackstone's formulation, for instance. It is better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer. The left holds the authoritarian view that it's better that 10 innocent people suffer than one guilty person escape, as exemplified by their willingness to burn down innocent people's buildings because one guilty person in their mind escaped. Well, right now, we have another situation happening. First, let me go through what some of the reactions are to the ongoing issues here. Jack Posobiec. Antifa is now taking credit for the Chauvin conviction due to their courageous public terrorism campaign last year and calling for further violent attacks against law enforcement. At a certain point, I have to ask, when will cops realize, and I'm sick and tired of hearing people say cops have to do their duty and they're not going to back down. I'm just over it, dude. The people have spoken. There's no one supporting you. The people in these homes will not stand up for you. No one is voting for you. Stop, leave. I'm over it. In fact, I'll say this. The states, the city councils, the mayors, whatever, they should go abolish the police. You know, man, these people are cheering for the riots, saying that without the riots, they would not have won. Tucker Carlson says, the jury said, please don't hurt us. He suggests the Derek Chauvin jury caved to the mob with guilty verdict, while Sean Hannity says it was correct, and ABC's Sonny Hostin breaks down on air. The verdict was not correct. This is not justice. One man going to prison on insane charges is not justice. You want to say Derek Chauvin should be convicted of manslaughter because cops shouldn't be allowed to just kill people? Fine. But murder? What the state is doing is throwing one man under the bus so that they can continue doing what they do. And that's why at this point, I'm like, y'all, if you're a cop and you're sticking around for this, I will not defend you ever again. Period. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because at a certain point, you have to recognize the establishment is against you. The media is against you. And the people who are supposedly on your side won't say anything in your defense. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of people who do. There are a lot of high profile, prominent conservative personalities who do. But a handful of commentators is not enough. When the left goes out in the street and burns down cities, that has an impact. State and local leaders are terrified, cowering over the violence, and they're just giving the lunatics whatever they want. And there is no principled resistance. There are some people speaking out against it. You know, there are people like me who will call out the rioters and say it's wrong. There are much more conservative individuals who will rally around Blue Lives Matter and defend police. Sorry, it ain't going to be me. Well, during COVID and during the lockdown, when cops were going to restaurants and arresting people, when cops were arresting people for not wearing masks, when cops were kicking people out of stores, when cops were going to people's homes to enforce red flag laws and violate Second Amendment, all this stuff that happened last year, we saw conservatives actually start to break from supporting police. At this point, I got no beef with an individual officer. I understand, and in my opinion, I think we need police. I do think we need police reform. It's really that simple. We don't want to abolish the police. We need cops to do their jobs. We do need cops to have certain restrictions, and we need people to be more responsible for themselves. To put it bluntly, at this point, if the left wants to abolish the police, conservatives, you don't live in these cities. Why do you care? Y'all got guns, right? You live out in the rural areas. Ain't worried about it, are you? When you got a local police department, they're probably fine. No one's trying to abolish the small town sheriff, I guess. But in these big cities where they want to abolish the police where they live, I really don't care at this point. For a while, I was like, dude, I lived in Chicago. I understand what things would be like without cops. I have been on the Nightcrawler beat. I've seen the cops answering these murder calls. And it's scary. And there's people crowding around and you don't know who's got a gun. It's a city's problem. They keep voting for this stuff. They keep voting Democrat. They keep getting the things they ask for. Why should I tell them how to live? I lived in the Philadelphia area for some time, and people are like, you know, big man of you, Tim, to say people should fight back when you ran away. No. Running away is part of fighting back or doing something. I'm not saying go out and be like marching in the streets. I'm saying stop sitting around watching this happen. Either leave and stop supporting this or stand up and defend your local police officers. For me, I was looking at an area in the Philadelphia suburbs where these people kept voting for this stuff. They vote to ban your guns. They vote to take away your right to defend yourself. And then they vote for the police, but then complain about the police. They vote for the police to have the authority to arrest their enemies, the people they don't like, and take away their guns. But then they complain about the cops. So I'm like, I tell you this, I'm not going to stick around for this, right? If your house is on fire and no one is putting the fire out, at a certain point, I understand it probably sucks, but your house is going to burn down. You're in a big office building. Fire breaks out. And you're like, everybody, if we just turn the sprinklers on, then the fire will be put out. And they're like, nah, I'm good. In fact, we're going to take your sprinklers from you. All right, I'm going to leave the building. Y'all can have it. All right. So I did. I left. I go to a more rural area. And now I am just going to rely on myself and not worry about it. I see the trend in these cities. They don't want cops. I'm curious as to why so many suburban and rural conservatives are concerned about what the cities do. I guess because in the long run, it's bad for the country as a whole. And there's a fear that this will result in demoralization and the end of policing. Sure, fine, whatever. Bro, in New York City, where they have stop and frisk, Democrats run it. In Chicago, where they have all these shootings, Democrats run it. Minneapolis, where all this is going down, Democrats run it. And I got people in Minnesota saying, yeah, but it's the cities dictating for the rest of the state. Yeah, man, that's how it goes. You still got Wyoming and West Virginia and a whole bunch of other rural areas you can live in. If you live in rural Minnesota, why do you want to stay in a city that is, stay in a state that's ruled by a major blue city? I just think at a certain point, you've got to get up and you got to leave. So let me show you what's going on first. We have breaking news. It's about to get a whole lot worse. Columbus police try to avert a new wave of BLM anger over the fatal police shooting of a 15-year-old girl by releasing body cam that shows her attempting to stab two women just minutes before Derek Chauvin was convicted as protesters gather. In Columbus, the police got a call. Let me read a little bit. They say Columbus police said that one person was killed in the officer-involved shooting that took place on the east side of Columbus. Witnesses said the victim was a 15-year-old girl, but police did not indicate who had been shot, just that the officer was not the victim. Authorities had been responding to an initial stabbing call around 4:30 p.m. The shots fired call was made just 15 minutes later. A woman at the scene, identified on Facebook as Chanel Kelly, shared a series of videos from the shooting. Jones shared in the post that the teen had the knife because somebody tried to jump her, and added that she was the one who called for help. So we got a tough spot here. Apparently, they're saying first, they said, actually, let me slow down. Cops show up, body camera footage is released. You've got people fighting. One girl is then seen with a knife in her hand, and she pulls her arm back, and then the cop shoots her several times, killing her. Initially, someone said that she had dropped the knife well before, and the cops just shot her. And that's the lie that spreads around and ignites the riots. Now they're saying she's actually the one who called for help. Someone was trying to jump her. Therein lies another issue. If you're calling for help, you probably shouldn't be chasing after a person with a knife. If you have a knife and someone tried to jump you, don't pin them up against a car and then draw your knife with the cops all around you. She got shot and killed. Here's where it gets crazy. Following the shooting, the people who are watching this go down blame the police. There's a couple people staring at this woman, drawing her knife, and the cop shoots her, and they go, "What are you doing? Why did you do that? Oh, man, what are you doing? Why? Oh, geez." And I'm like, bro, she had a knife. She was going to stab that lady. She's going to kill her. So cop shot her. Here's what I love. Do you guys know what Bugs Bunnying is? I reference it every so often. Let me show you this GIF image where it's Bugs Bunny pulling down a sign that says rabbit season, and Daffy Duck pulling down a sign that says duck season. You know this joke from the old Looney Tunes cartoon? The way it works is that Bugs Bunny is telling Daffy that it's actually duck season. Daffy is telling Bugs that it's rabbit season because they want Elmer Fudd to, kill the other one. Eventually, Bugs Bunny says, "It's rabbit season." Hey, wait a minute. But he's the rabbit. Why would he do that? And then Daffy Duck, because his whole mentality is just opposing Bugs, says it's duck season. So then Elmer Fudd shoots Daffy. That's called Bugs Bunnying, flipping it on them. So here's what happens. You've got people angry that cops showed up and intervened and stopped a woman from stabbing another woman. They're like, why would the cops do that? Well, oh, geez, why would the cops? So I said, cops should have just let Micaiah stab that other lady and not intervened. ACLU of Ohio tweeted, "Micaiah Bryant should still be alive today. The system that allows George Floyd to be murdered remains fully intact. Moments after we celebrated a win for police accountability in Minneapolis, news broke that Columbus police murdered a 15-year-old black girl. Her name was Micaiah Bryant. Say her name." Okay, cops should not have intervened. At a certain point, I actually do blame the cops. If every single person is screaming, "Let the lady murder the other lady, please," then you've got to be like, okay, who is this cop to decide what should be done or why? Cops are not judge, jury, and executioner. The cop was facing no threat himself. He was just watching a lady go to stab another lady, and no one wanted the cops to be there. Well, I bring up the Bugs Bunny thing because in response to this tweet, I get these people saying, oh, please, maybe what we're saying is that bad cops should be held accountable. And I'm like, wait, hold on. I'm the one who's been saying police reform for the past year. Now, all of a sudden, you're coming out and saying police reform when I say the cop shouldn't have intervened. Hilarious. It's Bugs Bunnying. So somebody says, just because we want the cops held accountable doesn't mean cops shouldn't stop a murder. And I said, abolish the police. And they were like, or how about maybe we have good cops? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You got Bugs Bunny, leftists. They're the ones calling for abolishing and defunding the police. You know what that means? It means there ain't going to be no cops. So now we have this. There's going to be riots over this for sure. It's the stupidest thing ever, but there's probably going to be riots. This young woman got stabbed. I'm sorry, she got shot. I wish she didn't. Okay, I don't like it when people get hurt. I want to have a Star Trek future where we can set our phasers to stun and we can explore the galaxy, or at least the Alpha Quadrant. How about that? Instead, no matter what you do, you will always be the bad guy. So here you have these cops. They show up to a call. They shoot this 15-year-old, 16-year-old. The activists and the people around immediately start lying because they don't care, because they hate cops. Why are cops showing up to this stuff? I'm mad at the cops at this point, dude. I got to be honest. Look, I'm not a big fan of cops enforcing unconstitutional laws. I'm not a big fan of a lack of police accountability, but I understand that cops do a pretty awful job, and I'm not going to, go after the individual for a system that needs reform. The left has decided to go full terror and just burn down buildings. Apparently, they're getting what they want, I suppose. But at this point, I'm sorry, I am mad at the cops on this one. The cops know what it means when you show up to these neighborhoods and you answer these calls. How stupid do you have to be at this point? Bro, if you put your hand on a fire, or I'll tell you, if someone says, put your hand on the stove, and you do, and then you get burned, and you go, whoa, man, you told me you didn't tell me it was hot. I'm going to be like, that was not cool. You tricked that person into doing something that we all know is dangerous, but you didn't expect to actually get burned. So I'm going to defend the guy who got burned. If at a certain point, these cops know that every time they reach to put their hand like in the oven to pull out the pan or whatever, someone turns the oven on max and they get burned. I'm going to be like, dude, you keep doing this. I'm not helping you. I'm not going to advocate on your behalf. I'm not going to defend you. Sorry. The cops know when they respond to these calls, no matter what they do, everyone there hates them. The media hates them. Their local leaders hate them, and they want to put them in prison. So how dumb do you have to be like, I'll go respond to this call? And then they show up, someone pulls a knife, and they're like, uh-oh, and they shoot him, and then everyone's mad at him. Okay, you know what? If this cop gets arrested, I don't care. I really don't. People are saying that he should have used a taser. He should have done a lot of things. You know what he should have done? He should have done nothing. Nothing. They want to abolish the police. Why do you keep going there? Listen, I'm sorry, man. I understand these individuals are trying to do the right thing. I get that. And I'm not trying I'm sorry. My defense of these cops can only go so far. If you know what the environment is, if you know what your local leaders will do to you, if you know the ramifications of what happens when you show up, why do you keep showing up? I'll put it this way. This cop who shot Ma'Khia Bryant, she did not have a knife on him. She had a knife on someone else. Self-defense stands when you're acting in defense of others. But this one's interesting. They don't want you there. They want the cops abolished. And yet you still showed up and you still fired thinking you were doing the right thing when they did not want it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd be willing to bet if the cop did nothing, they'd be complaining. Why didn't you save her? Why didn't you save her? Why didn't you stop her? Would have been a lot better, I suppose, than shooting and killing the girl and now sparking probably another wave of riots. Here's what I think should happen. I think in places like Minneapolis, every cop should resign. First and foremost, I think they should resign because the people voted for them to. They voted to abolish the police. They don't want the cops there. So stop doing this. Imagine being a cop and thinking like, well, the media hates me. The politicians hate me. The locals are burning down the city because they hate me. I'm going to stay. At what point are you like, dude, nobody wants you here. You should probably leave. It's like I'm at a party and I got a friend and everyone's yelling at him. And I'm like, dude, we're friends and everything. And I'll defend you and all that. But at a certain point, people just don't like you and they don't want you here. What do? I think we need cops. I do. And I think the problem now is good times make weak men, as the saying goes. We're spoiled. We don't understand what life would be like without the police. Then maybe we should let the people have their say. Look, when I see a situation like this Ma'Khia thing, and the people are voting and begging the cops to just leave, under what moral authority does the cop have to show up and disregard the will of the people? If somebody demands the right to stick their hand onto the top of a burning stove, I'm like, dude, it is your choice, okay? That's the way liberty works. If the people of an area like Minneapolis say, we don't want police, I call that peaceful revolution, I suppose, and get the state actors out of there. They don't want it. They don't want the cops there, and the cops shouldn't be there. Now, this is going to ripple across the rest of the country. It's going to affect basically everybody, most major cities. And I'll tell you this. If you're a conservative, I don't understand why you care at this point. Most conservatives live in rural areas and are armed to the teeth. Most people in this country like guns. That's a fact. There are liberal gun owners who for some reason vote for Joe Biden. They want to lose their guns, but fine, whatever. At least they have them. Conservatives don't live in these major metropolitan areas. They don't deal with this stuff. So stop defending the people who live there and vote for it. Stop defending the cops who go into these neighborhoods knowing exactly what the political climate is. I'm not going to do it anymore. I've not done it for a while. I will say I love I tweeted for like the 80th time that all cops should resign en masse. And a bunch of leftists are like, Tim's crying and all salty. I'm like, bro, crying? I'm blaming the cops. It's like, do you even watch my show? I've repeatedly said they shouldn't be there. The people have spoken. If you've got 100 people and 30 of them burn the city down, no, I'm sorry. Support for Black Lives Matter is like 48% according to Civics. So if you got 100 people and 48 of them are going around burning down the city, and then you've got another portion, maybe like another 5 or 10% that are voting in favor of politicians who support burning down the city. And then the rest of these people aren't voting for the police. They're just saying, leave me out of it. I'm sorry, you lost. You lost the vote. Popular vote goes to the abolish the police people. I don't understand what the point is right now. Why should I care about abolishing the police? I don't. I literally don't. I don't live in a major metro anymore. And if the people who do live there want to abolish the police, I ain't going to stand in their way. They can vote how they want. I left. I realized it was a losing argument. The moment these people voted for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the moment they voted for blue Democrat representatives, the moment they said they wanted this, I was like, that's the way this works, man. I'm not going to impose my will on you. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm smarter than you and you should live the way I live. I'm going to say this. I think without cops, things will get bad. I think you have a right to say you don't want cops. And if no one will stand up, then they've abstained from the vote. If they're not voting, then don't be surprised when the vote carried is abolish the police. Now, if you live in these areas where this is happening, sorry, I can't defend you either because you know what the people want. This is how the vote works. If most people in an area want to live without police, so be it. Now, look, as far as I'm concerned, maybe it will be a utopia. That's neither here nor there. Maybe it will be Mad Max. Neither here nor there. The people have spoken. That's my position. So I left. I think you should too. And a lot of people are saying it's not easy. Some people are saying it's hard. Look, man, I moved from Chicago to LA with $200 cash, found a ride share to get there, and I figured it out. I get it. I was 23 at the time. It's a lot easier than, when you have a family and things like that. Sorry, though. If you're not a fan of what's going on, then you need to just leave the cities. How many times do people like Jack Posobiec need to say, get out of the cities? How many times do I need to say it? And then you come to me and say, no, we need cops. I'm like, bro, you're not the majority here. Or actually, you might be. But the majority, if that's the case, they ain't voting. So you're not the voting majority. In fact, you're the voting minority. The voters have spoken. Stop living in areas where they want to get rid of cops because they're getting rid of cops. And there it is. I don't know what else to say, man. It's only going to get worse. The rioting's not going to stop. Convicting Derek Chauvin's going to solve nothing. But maybe this will finally be a lesson to these cops to stop responding to this stuff. You get a call that there's a scuffle going on, someone's getting jumped, just say, I'm not interested. You are under no obligation to do any of this. What are they going to do? We're going to fire you, officer, if you don't answer these calls. I really doubt it. I'll leave it there, man. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.